Great. So welcome to our 5th IC meeting.
And as always, we will be starting this meeting with our mission statement, so y'all can unmute yourselves and say it with me. Aggie Transition Camps exist to successfully transition new students into the Aggie family.
Beautiful.
That was great, guys.
Nice.
Such unison with that. So this week we had 2 fireside chat videos. Hopefully y'all were able to watch them before this meeting. For those of you who have not, don't freak out. Just make sure you go back and watch them after. So we're just going to have kind of like a little discussion about the themes that we kind of got from them and how they kind of apply to you and what we do here in ATC. So the second fireside chat, the book that was read was The Invisible Boy. So kind of our first question, and this is where you can unmute yourselves. What did you take away from The Invisible Boy? If anyone wants to give us kind of like a summary and then maybe what they took away, that would be great. Anyone is feeling courageous.
Anyone feeling bold?
Anyone?
So what I thought was kind of the main theme of the book was obviously like the kid doesn't have friends, he doesn't really have like a friend group. And I think it applies to camp a whole lot because the kid he's just off by himself and he doesn't really connect with the other kids, which is something you'll encounter a lot at camp. Like there'll be a camper who might not talk that much or be super extroverted. So that's just something to really be aware of, is like branching off from even if you have a group of friends, like branching off from that group and reaching out to someone who may feel kind of alone or isolated.
And then this question is kind of universal in general. How can you exemplify love for others? And that's kind of what this book, again, touched on, was that inclusivity. Someone said something in the chat. Does anyone feel particularly brave, bold? How can you exemplify love for others? Just in general, what this might look like.
Talk about in general within the context of camp. Even if you haven't watched the video, like this is something I can still answer.
I think for me personally, the biggest thing is honestly just showing that you care about, like not like you're just there for them, but you actually care about them and like you're listening to them. I know in camp sometimes I had to go away from, because I can be pretty extroverted, but I can also be pretty introverted at times, and sometimes having to swap between those crowds. And if someone's like struggling or like a little bit slower to sort of getting in the pack, sort of just not necessarily pulling them in, but just being there for them, being there to help them and support them.
Good. And then Isaiah, you said that making sure they always feel like someone is there for them. Very good. That includes.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I was just going to add on to what they were saying.
Go for it.
So I agree with them. I think the biggest thing is like people want to have somebody to talk to, and whether or not you're just talking about, the crappy food that's at T-Pines or, what their major is, people just want to have something that they can find in common to feel comfortable, because not everybody feels comfortable going to T camp. Last summer, I was a counselor for the first time. I'd never been to fish camp or T camp, so I was uncomfortable myself. If you just walk up and start talking to people, I feel like that's the best way to do that, to show your love for people, because then, you create that bond.
All right, and then afterwards, there was a little TED Talk video. And in this video, one of her friends had a baby, and she was kind of discussing like the hopes and dreams she had for this kid. And so it brought up some themes. Did any of y'all take away anything from the TED Talk? Anything at all? Again, if you haven't watched it, don't freak out. I'm not gonna single you out or anything on this question, but just make sure you go back and watch these, because I really do think their messages are applicable. So make sure you go do that. Anyone at all? If not, I'll kind of get us going. For this particular TED Talk, I really like the fact that she talked about how that everyone has the ability to impact other people, and sometimes you have to step up and be a leader in other people's lives to create change, and change can take all different kinds of forms, which I think was really good, because even what we do in camp here, sometimes we underestimate the impact that we can have on people. And so I think for her, she talked about like serving other people, and what we're doing is serving other people. So how does this video kind of service and love for others apply to camp? If anyone wants to take that question.
Well, I think we all signed up with this wanting to serve in some aspect to help the students as they're in transitioning and they are coming to A&M. And I think that I know from my experience at Fish Camp, some of the littlest things maybe feel accepted and included and remembered. Like my namesake remembered my name after meeting so many different people, and that was really impactful to me, and I bet she didn't realize how impactful that was.
Sweet. Very good, Kaylee. So really both of these have to do with exemplifying love for others. Our first fireside chat that we talked about 2 meetings ago was really like love for yourself, and now we're kind of applying that love to other people. And so then there was
we had, as we said, we had 2 fireside chats this week, kind of playing catch up. But in this one, we started off with Emily reading the book Even Superheroes Make Mistakes, which I thought had a pretty good message. It was just talking about it portrayed superheroes in different light from usual. Like usually in movies, like superheroes like defeat the bad guy. They're always like pretty cool, good looking, you know. But in this book, it portrays them more as people who are flawed and who make mistakes. That was kind of the general theme of it. So did y'all have any takeaways from this book? Anything in addition to what I said, or did y'all view it in a different way than I did at all? Any thoughts y'all would like to add?
I think it can be very applicable to what we'll go through, because however we're seen in the eyes of the campers, or whoever the chairs seem to us, or whoever's a higher up, we're all still in the same position of we're still learning as we go, and it's okay to make those mistakes. No one's gonna really judge us if we make mistakes. It's just learning from our mistakes and moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly right. And another question we had for this one is, can you identify with the superheroes in this book?
Well, I don't know about y'all, but I tend to hold myself to a really high standard, and I don't like messing up. I'm a perfectionist, 110%. So it's hard for me to like accept that, like, you know, it's okay to make mistakes as long as you're learning from them.
Yeah, for sure. And like throughout this whole camp process, like you might miss deadlines, you might not get everything done you need to get done. Like you're gonna mess up. It's really all about like how you move on from that. Like you let it bring you down and continue to affect you afterwards, or like really as long as you're putting out effort, like that's all we're going to ask of you. Like we want you to try your best to bond with the campers and to bond with one another, but we don't expect perfection. So that's kind of me and Laura's whole mentality towards this camp. And then that Fireside Chat 3 also came with a TED Talk where the guy was talking about how really anyone can be a leader, and how he had this huge impact on this girl's life where she ended up marrying a guy because he kind of like took the effort to talk to her, and then she ended up like forming a connection with this other guy standing next to her. And then she like didn't tell him until years down the road, and he came to realize like, wow, I actually changed the course of someone's life without even realizing it. So question for y'all, what did y'all take away from this video? I really love this video. I thought there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah, he described it as like a lollipop moment or whatever, and I think I've talked about that like with somebody before, and like never heard it called that before. So like hearing him say that was cool. But he said something around the like lines of like people are often like leadership roles but don't want to take credit for it. I don't know if it's like a selfish thing, but then he was talking about how like it's good to tell people like if someone's made an impact on you, like on their life, and like how we usually don't say anything about it, but like it's good to hear that. And so I think that's like an important thing is kind of like give like applaud people for like if they do something for you or like change something.
Yeah, like he was trying to say how like there's leadership qualities in like everyday living that you can be like showing other people, and that's what affects people day to day. That doesn't have to be like some great leadership thing that like changes a movement in history, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like in camp context, like you're probably how you're really going to affect people is just through like one-on-one conversations and getting to know people and just maybe talking to them about whatever they have going on in their life. That's how you're really going to change them. It's not going to be by like you getting up in front of everyone and giving like a fiery speech at camp or anything. Like that's not what we ask of you. It's really just all about forming relationships with people and making them feel welcomed and loved and supported and all that. And Parker, with what you said, I think I totally agree with that. Like me and Laura were actually talking about that yesterday, like how important it is if someone impacts you just to tell them. Because like I know if I'd impacted someone and then they told me about it, like it would mean the world to me. And I think a lot of times people really have positive impacts on us and then we don't even ever tell them that. But it's definitely really good to hear that and something we should be more aware of, I think.
One thing also I thought was really cool, like sometimes we don't even realize that we're impacting someone's life that much because with him it was like that simple interaction and that changed the course of her life. So I think it just goes to show you that every interaction you have with people is important and has the potential to be like life changing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. And our last question, do you see yourself as a leader?
I kind of related to this part in the video where he starts it off and he asks the whole crowd there who's themselves, the same question, do you see yourself as a leader? And he goes on, that he asks the same question all around the country, and it's always a very minority amount of people that raise their hand and describe themselves as a leader because as a culture, we've placed this idea that if you consider yourself a leader and you're willing to admit it, that it kind of brings on some type of arrogance with yourself. And that's just something we've developed that it's really not. And so in that essence, yes, I mean, I would say that I like to see myself as a leader and that I do it by example and that hopefully, though I might think about it, I don't set that type of mindset in other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Like
I agree with that. That's also what I was thinking because I was sitting here thinking about that question. And people do usually see it as like if you answer yes, like, oh, am I going to seem arrogant? I think the sort of best way to go about it, and I think most of what a leader is someone that I would consider myself a leader, but I'm also willing to be led and sit back and let other people lead, like just as willing to learn as I am to lead.
That's exactly how I feel. It's like I try to step back in the beginning and like because for fear of seeming to, I guess, dominating or wanting to assert like my opinion or like the way I think something should be done. So I tend to try to step back and let someone else come forward and assume that leadership role. But if I see that no one's doing that, I'll step in.
I really think that it just depends on your like viewpoint of being a leader. I feel like there's a lot of people who like are leaders who don't really realize it with just confidence and stuff. But like for me, I do see myself as a leader, but I'm more of like a servant leader. Like I'd rather just be like, okay, what can I do for you to get you where you need to be or where you want to be for us to like achieve our goal? And I really think that there's a difference between arrogance and leadership and that it's like a very fine line. And so like if you have the confidence to say, yes, you are a leader, you have to realize that it comes with the fact of like you are there to serve and you're there to like be someone for someone else rather than you're there to like tell people what to do. And I really think that like that's the difference between like leadership and dictatorship. So I think it really just depends on your personality.
Another thing I'd like to add to that is I'm sure many of you don't see yourself as leaders. That's totally normal. Like, I think I felt that way during my first time as a counselor. Like, I didn't see myself in that light. But whenever you get to camp, like, I know not all of y'all have been to camp, but the campers are going to see you as a leader just based on the fact that you're there as a counselor. Like, I remember when I was a camper, I just kind of looked at all the counselors. Like, I was just in awe of them. Like, these people are so cool. Like, I just wanted to get to know them, like the campers are going to see you as leaders, whether or not you see yourself as a leader or not.
I just want to say I also agree with that. I almost I wasn't gonna say anything. It's like, do I see myself as a leader? I was like, well, I was like, I didn't want to say that I'm the president of my org now. So yeah, I see myself as a leader, but then I also didn't want to seem off as confident, arrogant, but finding that balance of being able to be okay, yeah, I am a leader and I'm proud to be a leader, but being a serving leader instead of a dominating leader, how Annalise was saying. But yeah, definitely when being a counselor last year was a huge stepping stone for me in being a leader, because it gave me the confidence to be able to apply to be president for my org and have all these new leadership roles. So it opens up a whole new thing, and it's I don't know, it's cool.
Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add or say before we move on? All right, cool. Thank you all for your contributions.
Okay, so this next one, dues are going to be due on Marketplace. The new due date got pushed back. It was originally in April, but staff pushed it back until May 6th. So that's when that full payment is due of $220. And again, we realize with everything going on right now, everybody's situation is different. So if those payment plans they have, there's a half payment plan and a full payment plan. If neither of those work for you, please contact Julia at that email address there, and I'll include it in our recap email. And she can work with you on getting a payment plan set up for y'all. Dues shouldn't keep you from going to camp. So just make sure you're kind of aware that's in the horizon coming up.
So we will be having another AC hangout this week, and we would love to see all y'all there. At the last few, I think we've been pretty well represented, probably about average compared to the other camps. But it'd be cool if we had a lot of us there. And if you do go, please wear aqua. I'm going to be wearing aqua. That'd be kind of cool if there were just a whole bunch of aqua wearing people there. But we'd like to see as many of y'all there as possible. And attendance there isn't a competition, but I am pretty competitive. And it'd be cool if we had a lot of people there from our camp. So we've had 2 so far, and they've been really fun. And we would love to have as many of y'all there as possible.
It's just a really great way to see who else is in camp and meet people from other camps as well. So definitely.
Yeah.
This next one, so we just assigned you guys round 2 of skits. So those are going to be your new groups. These skits are not going to be due until Saturday, May 2nd. So that gives you guys a little less than 2 weeks to get these in. So kind of the same timeline as round 1. Obviously your skit groups did change. So hopefully you're working with new people maybe you haven't interacted with yet. And your skit groups are also going to serve as your lunch buddy groups. So that's why the teamers are in there, we're in there, and then our campfire speakers and Emily are in there as well. So again, a little less than 2 weeks, so you have time to get those in and done. And if y'all have any questions on skit writing, hopefully kind of you saw how the first round went, but if you have any questions on where to find information on any of that stuff, just feel free to reach out and ask us.
And here are this week's texting buddies. Should still be people you haven't been with yet. Me and Laura are going to great lengths to ensure that. And I think we got them all where you're with somebody new. But yeah, that's your texting buddies. Make sure you're doing them.
All right, I'm giving you guys a little bit of time if someone's taking a picture of it. But and then our last is some final reminders. So our recap email, again, will come out Monday morning. Please read these in their entirety. We do take time making sure we include relevant information in them, as well as like our hidden little thing to know if you have read them. Please read them, because we know who you are. But try to schedule your virtual lunch buddy and dinner this week. Don't forget your texting buddies. That AC hangout, again, is going to be this Wednesday. Please wear aqua. Robbie and I are going to be there. We're trying to be the most represented camp there. And then lastly, your skits are due Saturday, May 2nd by 11:59 p.m. in the drive. Any questions? Any questions at all? Perfect. All right.